Police Chief David Brown in Dallas.
I want to share with you some of the comments from this suspect. The suspect said he was upset about Black Lives Matter. He said he was upset about the recent police shootings. The suspect said he was upset at white people. The suspect stated he wanted to kill white people, especially white officers. The suspect stated we will eventually find the IEDs. The suspect stated he was not affiliated with any groups, and he stated that he did this alone. The suspect said other things that are part of this investigation so that we can make sure that everyone associated with this tragic event is brought to justice.
That is the Dallas Police Chief. Today is Friday the 8th of July 2016, but guaranteed you can mark as the demarcation point, the point of no return, July 7th, 2016, of when the George Soros, Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, globalist, destabilization, race war-based civil war program was launched in the United States. There have been dozens of movies the last year pushing racial division and oppression of black people and bringing up every old wound and reopening it and rubbing salt in it. There have been countless TV shows and news programs and press conferences, and the president, 4 times that I'm aware of in the last week, coming out and giving speeches about the oppression of black people and the harassment of black people in this country, which undoubtedly is going on to some extent. But the point is, metrically, statistically, it's one of the least important issues if you're actually black in this country or any other color. And I'm going to go over the statistics and the numbers. But they are absolutely hyping this going into the hottest months of the summer, July and August, ahead of an election that's 4 months away. A lot of people, this broadcast today will be deja vu, because you've heard me hammer the plan that they're orchestrating. You've heard me point out that the big money banks and the Ford Foundation, the Carnegie Foundation, and the Rockefeller Foundation, not just George Soros, are behind funding hundreds of millions of dollars into these groups at universities, high schools, you name it. What you're going to see today is obviously the aftermath of what's happened, but it's going to be a breakdown of what's coming. Now, there's several different future scenarios, and we, the people, are going to govern what happens. But right now, we are witnessing what George Soros brags, and we're putting reports together showing all this, he did in Tunisia, in Libya, in Egypt, to a failed extent in Syria, in Ukraine, in Georgia, and many other areas. You know, in Egypt, and you know, in Ukraine and other areas, the overthrow of the governments began as anti-police demonstrations. Because police are the visible form of the government and what the people run into, and the media plays it up to scapegoat them for the larger government problems. Kind of like blaming TSA for Congress putting them in place. And the globalists can sit up in their palaces while the low-level people get the heat. This is an exact program. Now, we know the enemy program. If people will listen, and if the local governments will listen, we can stop this. I know how to stop this. I told you it was coming. Listen to me. We'll be back. Humans are designed to pick a side. It's our ancient programming. It's our instincts. Cowboys versus the 49ers. Coke versus Pepsi. Ford versus Chevy. Black versus white. And the global social engineers have written countless books and white papers admitting that they just manipulate us and play us off against each other. Very, very powerful words. We're going to play in a few minutes of Ben Carson, where he boils it all down in just a few minutes, what exactly is going on here. It's very, very sad. I have the statistics from the FBI and from the states here about just how many people cops are actually killing, period. And when you look at it, you understand it is a total red herring. Now, that isn't about defense of police or bureaucrats or fundraising, revenue generation that's going on. I certainly have a lot of issues, and people know that I am a major government reformer or police reformer. I've written books, I've made films. Why, years ago I was known as Mr. Anti-Police State. But it was my deep study of the issue that brought me to a much more sophisticated, in-depth understanding of not just police in this country, but the entire compendium of the history of police and paramilitaries for that matter. And so today I'm going to try to cover what's happened in Dallas, what this signifies, where we're going, and how we can hopefully stop this. Because let me explain something. I'm 100% on the side of due process and local government, and thus the police. And the reason I'm making that bold statement is I want to choose a side openly and say which side I'm on. And I'm going to elaborate on this in just a moment. Because at a primitive level, we all tend to jump to one side or the other. I choose due process and local government because I know who's behind this destabilization program, and I understand where it's designed to lead us. And by legitimately supporting due process and not anarchy, I will then legitimately be able to be involved in reform and trying to make this a better nation and a better world. Now, let's be clear. We're told there's two sides. You're either for the police or you're for Black Lives Matter. I don't choose a side in that because it's a false paradigm. Foreign, multinational, social engineering programs on record that have been used all over the world to overthrow governments and to destabilize regions are in effect, not just here, but in scores of nations, and we're going to break that down today. So it is multinational globalists manipulating our internal affairs to turn us against each other and start a civil war. So when I say I choose local government and due process, that isn't choosing the police, it's choosing my country and recognizing an outside attempt at divide and conquer. So when you think about the sides to choose, it's George Soros or it's your local government. It's the New World Order, it's Goldman Sachs, it's JP Morgan. Who's financing the anti-police groups? Who's financing the open borders? Who's financing bringing the groups in? Yesterday, Obama announced 15 corporations led by Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan that are actually bringing the foreigners in themselves. That's who's hijacked the country. And whether it's Ukraine or whether it's Egypt or whether it's Georgia, this destabilization program is being carried out and captained by George Soros. He has taken the credit for all three countries and others. And when they overthrow all three of those countries, do you know how they did it? It started with anti-police groups, and then they either bully the local governments into accepting their leadership over the police, or they start a civil war and overthrow the elected government and then put their people in. This is an admitted program being run by the State Department and George Soros and Obama. And notice Obama and all these movies and all these TV shows and all this propaganda, and Obama coming out in 4 different speeches the last week, including one yesterday, saying that the police are after black people and the police are persecuting them and they're killing them and it's a big problem. And then this happens hours later in Dallas, and Obama comes out this morning. It's on Infowars.com. We have the clips. And says, quote, here it is. From Politico, after latest shooting, Obama says U.S. police must reform. So it's their fault that this former Army soldier, Micah X. Johnson, 5 facts you need to know, who's told police before he was killed by a robot, that's interesting, that he was angry at white police and white people and wanted to kill them because of the Black Lives Matter movement had angered him. This gentleman and 2 other people decided, because they were mad about a video out of Minnesota where a cop might have shot somebody who was innocent, okay, burn them. And so you just go out and randomly target white people. Pure, mindless, racist tribalism. And then you've got Loretta Lynch and the UN with the Strong Cities Initiative launched this year, 6 months ago, in February, coming out and saying, we're going to reform the police with the UN, with taxpayer-funded offices in every major city to basically take over the police departments and local government, so then the police can persecute libertarians, veterans, conservatives for not believing in man-made global warming or exposing Agenda 21. That's in the new Democratic Party platform, to arrest us. This is how you bring in totalitarianism. Everything we've been warning about is happening now. Unbelievable. So, the feds give them armored vehicles. The feds militarize the police. The feds teach them instinctive shooting, which then they think they see a gun and they shoot you, and then the cop's like, oh my God, what'd I do? I'm not trying to shoot the guy in the back on purpose. This latest video out of Baton Rouge, he's like, oh no, oh God, knowing his life's over. On a bunch of coffee, rolling around, the guy's got a gun, you're pulling up. They said he had a gun, then the whole thing goes to hell. That cop knows his life's over. You think he just wanted to shoot somebody? I'm not defending what happened. I don't want that job. You get a Baton Rouge shooting, you get a St. Paul shooting, and it's the end of the world. My daughters, about 3 weeks ago, we were at my parents', and they had just a TV show on, and a ad for the Shallows came on, where great white sharks are chasing this woman trying to eat her. We went to Cancun a few days later, and my daughters that have been getting in the surf since they were 3 years old did not want to get in it because of great white sharks. And I explained to them there are no great white sharks in the Caribbean. You're safe. Shark attacks are super rare. They still would barely get in the water. Same thing happened in 1972. They had to put ads for years in newspapers explaining less than 10 shark attacks a year on the coast of the United States, period. Less than 5 great white attacks. There's less than 12 worldwide every year. Look it up. But they think there's this big shark about to eat them. It's a perception. Just like they create the perception that the police are just mowing black people down everywhere. 250-something in 2015 out of tens of millions of people. It's a total mind game, ladies and gentlemen. To divert from double black unemployment, to divert from being targeted with medical experiments, to divert from mandatory minimum sentences that Bill Clinton put in place that are wrong. It goes on, and this will create so much white racism now, which is what they want, and black racism to clash us against each other, divide and conquer. 990 people, the FBI's own numbers, died in 2015 from police. Almost all of them justified. But let's say all 990 weren't justified. There are hundreds of deaths a year, 90+% black people in Chicago, and those numbers are only going up. Black on black, you never hear about that because it's not the cops. So people aren't even aware. They don't even have a perception. Thousands and thousands of black people shoot and kill each other a year, and it's not even an issue. But 200 and something get killed by cops. And it's the biggest issue this country ever saw. And this country's on the edge of civil war and being destabilized by George Soros and a group of multinational foundations. He put $34 million in 1 month into Ferguson alone to trigger